Welcome to the press conference of ACEA at this very timely moment, critical for the EU, but also for the automotive industry. For those who don't know me yet, I'm Director General of ACEA, Sigrid de Vries. I will say a few words, then give the floor to Luca De Meo, who is the CEO of Renault Group, of course, but also the ACEA President, and then we'll take your questions afterwards. But I'd really like to stand back for a second, pause for a second, because 2 years ago, I welcomed Luca De Meo as president of our association, and it really has been an absolute pleasure to work with a passionate and ambitious leader of such experience and foresight, and to work together as our industry moves through a critical period in its long and successful history. And perhaps a bit of a personal insight, but I think that there are very few people in the world who love cars as much as Luca De Meo does. And he showed that also in his recent book, and I have it here, and I think he brought a few copies, the Dictionnaire amoureux de l'automobile, which he wrote together with a few others. And this passion for cars, I can testify myself, really translates into his work. He has an incredible feel for what moves the market, and he continues to be one of the best informed actors in the European automotive sector. And he has a real passion also for securing this industry, the auto industry, which is a long-standing bedrock of our society and economy here in Europe. And that's very important also for the work that we do as ACEA. So 2 eventful years. We've seen our activity at ACEA also reach new levels, from ensuring Euro 7, remember, Euro 7, contributing effectively to reducing emissions, to supporting the transition towards decarbonization, and also ensuring the launch of a European industrial deal. And our flagship ACEA Pop-up Experience Center, the building that you are in today, too, is an example of our new approach, linking facts to minds and hearts with new insights and arguments. And we brought around 40 dynamic events in the past 6 weeks, reaching over 1,000 visitors here in person and a multitude also of that online. So this really has been a future-driven, forward-thinking and positive experience about the joint journey of Europe and automotive, and what is and can be achieved when we work together. So I give now, with great pleasure, for one more time, because he is the departing ACEA president, the floor to Luca to share his outlook on where we stand today and where we're moving. And as I said, then we take questions afterwards. Thank you, Luca.
Thank you, Sigrid. So welcome to everybody. Thank you to all of us for being here today at our Experience Center. It's a place which is, I think, pretty symbolic of how we want to see ACEA more, closer to customers, to the street, and more closer to the different stakeholders. So it's a kind of materialization of this idea. I think ACEA is pushing forward because automotive is also changing, as the situation is, more generally changing in Europe. Maybe, as Sigrid said 2 years ago, when we stepped all together, because you just came into the thing, and so we actually shared our diagnosis. We actually were very clear on the fact that European auto industry was losing ground for 20 years to its global competition, while facing at the same time its deepest transformation ever with the EV shift that was imposed by regulation. Also, regulatory approach, that was our conclusion, that puts us somehow at a disadvantage because we lack consistency and a holistic approach that both let's say China, and in another form US, were able to deliver. We also emphasize that we need a constructive exchange between the public authorities, all stakeholders, and the industry, to come up with solutions, and I underline the word solution, for preserving a sector which is also critical for Europe itself. I don't want to, keep repeating all the numbers that we all, but it's still a very, very relevant industry. Actually, a part of the problem comes from the fact that the auto industry was no longer listened to for many years. So continue to push it back at the core of the conversation has been one of our key objectives over the past 2 years. I think we made it if I look at the numbers, because of course we track, the impact of the work that is done at ACEA, and we could clearly see, a real bump, okay, in the numbers. And I think with Cedric's help, we have repositioned ACEA to engage not only with policymakers, but also more broadly, putting it in a position to connect and build consensus across different organizations. Over the past 2 years, we have done many things that reflect an open approach. And I especially want to thank Sigrid for that. I think that under her leadership, she and all the team has been able to drive this ACEA transformation. So thank you, Sigrid. It's been a pleasure for me too. So I think we have stepped up our game with policymakers. We've done much to take our position, I would say, very clear, sometimes too clear, no? Especially when it comes to the need of an industrial strategy rather than, piling up regulation. For example, with the manifesto we published last year, I think we made a lot of very concrete proposals. I'm going to mention only, some kind of plug-and-play solution on the table, like the proposal we are discussing right now to streamline, regulatory calendar. I think it perfectly aligns with the new Commission mandate, which is a good news, and we have it there, and we hope that it can proceed in the right direction. And the past 2 years also shown that this industry can stay united in front of the challenges that it faces, and I think this is a very good news. So we've seen it, for example, with the Euro 7 that you mentioned, and I'm very happy to hear about Stellantis' intention to come back to the ACEA. It's a very powerful sign of the credibility of this organization. It's on the right side of the history, and it's going to help Europe auto industry push it in the right direction. And we have also opened this experience center where we are today. As I said, it's designed to invite the public to engage with us and join the debate. So many things have moved forward, and I'm honestly very proud of what we have achieved. I've learned a lot of things, but I also think it's fair to say that much of the key roadblocks that we identified 2 years ago are still there. So what's happening with the CAFE regulation is another example of Europe about, to shoot itself in the foot with 16 billion euros of fines looming over an industry that's putting over 250 billion investment into the energy transition. 60 billion that risk being diverted from further investment in innovation and in the energy transition, because those who have set the rules have not provided the necessary, market condition, charging infrastructure, stable incentive schemes, pricing of energy, etc. So actually the core issue is that we still lack, I think, and we think, a consistent policy approach on the short, mid, and long term, and addressing, I would say, the entire value chain and not one one of the rings of the chain. And we are at the moment when we all see that Europe challenges are even bigger than we anticipated, with the rise, for example, of the Chinese EV industry and threats to globalization and protectionism becoming, unfortunately, fashionable again. So it's clear that Europe must raise its game and play collective. And we have been repeating that for now 2 years. We must move on from only thinking in terms of deadlines and fines to being able to define a robust approach, a strategy with flexibility, allowing us to manage the transition and to constantly adapt to the game. The good news is that everyone is starting to recognize it. It's actually one of the key, for example, message of the Draghi report that we like. And this is the philosophy that is also at the core of the contribution laid out by ACEA to the Clean Industrial Deal and the EU Industrial Action Plan for the automotive sector. So one thing is clear. Now it's time for us Europeans to play as a team more than ever. Of course, my successor can count on my full support, and he takes, let's say, over as the new ACEA president, which will be announcing tomorrow. On my side, my commitment doesn't end with this mandate. Renault Group will continue to be a driving force within ACEA in the service of an ambitious, let's say, automotive strategy for the benefit of all. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Sigrid. Thank you to the ACEA team for all the support I had these 2 years. It was very precious, and I think it can now start with a Q&A.
Thank you, Luca. And indeed, and just 2 short remarks. We'll take questions on European issues, and industry issues, not on individual companies such as Renault. And there are 2 mics in the room. So if you put your hand up and indicate you'd like to ask a question, then one will be coming your way. Ben is here to handle a mic. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much for the floor. Javier Albizu for the Spanish news agency EFE. You mentioned, Mr. Temeo, a little bit of this holistic plan with all the chain value, but could you be more precise on what would you expect to be delivered and when, like in terms of midterm, for example? And then what happens with the Règlement 225 and then 235 dates? Do you think this should be moved or not? And last, if I may, batteries and the Chinese dependence on the materials to build these batteries. How could European industry address that problem when you talk about the whole value chain?
I mean, the answer to your first question is very long. I don't know if we have the time to be totally exhaustive, but I think that, let's say, what everybody needs to understand is that we only are a part of the solutions of the automotive industry. If we want to go in energy transition, you need to align the interests of many, many industries, from chemical industry to infrastructure industry to energy industry, and of course, let's say, and of course, automotive OEM, which has not been necessarily the case, and the result is, you know, what we see. Electric market, in fact, is actually growing at the pace that we have never seen in other technology. I'm working more than 30 years in the automotive industry. I have never seen a new technology going so fast, so quick, right? So high into the mix. But it's not enough to match the objectives that were defined maybe 6-7 years ago. And in the meantime, we haven't seen a lot of things happening, right? So, and we have seen a lot of things happening, like the crisis in Eastern Europe, like you know, the inflationary pressure on materials, on semiconductors, the fact that, I don't know, many, for example, let's say gigafactory project take necessarily the time to ramp up because it's so what we are looking for is flexibility in the short term because the plan is working, but not completely, okay? So we need to keep insisting. I think that nobody refuses the direction in the automotive industry. If I can just report from all the conversation I had in the last 2 years with all my colleagues. So there's nobody in the automotive industry that is trying to, you know, deny the necessity of decarbonization of transport, etc. The question is the pace, and especially how do we get there? And we get there by everybody contributing a part of the thing. Right, and not only putting the burden on OEMs with the fines and deadlines, because that's, you know, doesn't work, or it works in the sense that we're going to have to block a lot of resources in the short term to pay fines. Okay, so I think there are a lot of ideas in the manifesto and the recent communication of the ACEA. We need that kind of collective and horizontal approach. We need a strategy. We need a simplification of the regulation, a calendar of, I mean, I think we have like 8 to 12 new regulations per year from now to 2030. We have up to 25% of our R&D resources that are dedicated to regulation. And you know what it means? When you do regulate, when an engineer does regulation, in fact, is not creating competitive advantage because everybody has to do it. So there's no differential competitive advantage. And in fact, because it's a regulation, the customer doesn't want to pay. So if you put a new GSR2 or whatever feature into the car, the people say, look, it's the law. So I'm not going to pay for that. And it means that we are like a four-cylinder engine that runs on three, knowing that we need engineering capacity, right, in front of the challenge we have from the Americans on the thing. So I think that certainly simplifying, not refusing the regulation, but just simplifying the thing, make it more logic, as we have a concrete proposal. I think we have to look at potentially, let's say, we have always defended the principle of the technological neutrality. Solution like, we always talk about passenger car, but there's no way we'll be able to do, the targets or providing proper solution, for example, in the light duty vehicle, right, into the commercial vehicle. Because, if you occupy the space and the weight with a big battery on a van, you're actually doing something that is opposite to what this product is designed for. So you look at the mix of EV in the commercial vehicle, it's actually 5%. So there's no solution. So we need other solution. Okay? So that kind of principle is important. I think we need to work for making mobility more affordable, because Europeans cannot afford to buy new cars anymore. The market, by the way, is 25% below historical series. It's the only region in the world where it didn't came back to the level pre-COVID. It's a sign. It's a sign that people cannot afford. Not that they are not interested in cars, because then they buy used cars. So used car market is good dynamic. It's a new car market. And if we don't have let's say, a good market in Europe, actually the whole thing is not interesting for investors. All the money from the financial money is going to US right now, right? Why? Because if you have a market that's like, I don't know, 17, 18 million cars in US, you have almost 30 million cars, 25, 27 million cars in China, and the market of Europe is 13 million, we, let's say, mechanically become less interesting. Okay? The market is kind of down. So we need to find a way to kind of making dynamic again. We probably need to fight for regulation that will allow cars to be more affordable. We talk about small cars. This is one of my favorite battles, not only because I'm the CEO of Renault that builds small cars, but because a small car is by definition lower in impact. You have less plastic, less battery, less steel, etc. And for some users, it's actually what we did. I mean, mobility in Europe was, created. Mass mobility in Europe was created with cars like the Cinquecento, the Renault 4, the Chevaux, the Käfer in Germany, etc. Not with big cars. So we need to come back, at those times where we can offer people the possibility to actually drive a car that is affordable. So these are, but I could make a list of,
because
very
for that,
clear.
manufacturing needs to be affordable, indeed.
Yeah, manufacturing needs to be affordable. I mean, I think this has been our battle, but I think we're very clear on the priority, and we hear that the Commission is planning to actually present a plan on the industry in general, and part of it will be automotive. And so far we haven't been necessarily involved in this kind of discussion, and this thing is coming in 60, 90 days. So what we're going to say today is just involve us, because we have very, very concrete ideas on how to make it happen. By the way, we are the guys that are putting the money, right? So everybody's writing or making declaration, etc. We put the money, we put our face, we put our neck into this. So we owe, let's say, the possibility of being at the table to build a plan. Okay? And we have, I can guarantee you, after so many years of work, a very, very concrete proposal that is agreed across the industry. Okay? So this is I want to maybe rebound only on the battery thing. I will answer with an anecdote. Renault has been one of the first OEM to engage on EVs in the world. So we had cars in the market 2011, 2012, Fluence, Zoe. So we know the thing very, very well. And I mean, we had some hesitation at a certain point, but in fact, Renault started very early. Okay, and we were we were let's say one of the manufacturers that allowed, for example, a company like LG, that is one of the leading organization in the battery sector, to actually enter the automotive segment. Okay, us and GM at that time. Now, it took us, and this is a fact, 10 years to reduce the scrap in our gigafactories below a level of 10%. 10 years, okay? And it took us 10 years to cut by 2, let's say, the cost of a battery. So we have experience. So those projects like, I don't know, Nordvolt, ACC, Vercor, all these things, if you want to start, it's not like opening, you know, a bread shop where you center, you know, you set the temperature of the oven, and after 48 hours you understood how to cook pain au chocolat or, you know, a croissant, etc. It takes years, right? It takes years to make it work. So that's exactly what we need to agree with the authorities, that it's fine and it's like easy to put a deadline on a 31st of December or whatever. But there are things that maybe don't work as we expect. Therefore, we have to adapt. But we don't have to give up on the plan, because I don't know if, personally, I don't know if EVs will be 100%, 80%, 70% of the market. I don't know, because, you know, to make a forecast in these times at 10 years, if I see someone that can make a forecast at 10 years, you know, I'm going to give him all my money, right? But we build the future, right? So we have 10 years to go. I don't know where it's going to get, but for sure EV will be a dominant technology, for sure. Because especially on some of the segments, this thing, it makes sense for the consumer. We can do a small urban car with the cost and cost of use below traditional combustion. We can. On commercial vehicle for, let's say, last mile delivery, EV technology makes a lot of sense, because you have a small battery, you don't do more than 200, 250 kilometers a day. It's a stop and go. So it's actually very practical. So there are things that I am a guy that comes from, you know, the sales and marketing area, etc. I always look at what is good for the consumer. You're never wrong. And I know that in some segments, EV is much better than combustion. Is it going to be 100%? But even if it's 70% and you have 10 million EVs sold in Europe, I can tell you it's a big business. And by the way, that will be the only growing business if the market is flat, right? So we can't refuse progress. We can't close the market completely, because otherwise we're going to wake up in 10 years and realize that the world has moved forward, and Europe would have lost the train of investing in software, semiconductors, EVs, and all these things. So we have to push. Is it going to be 100? I don't know, right? So that's maybe, so we need a little bit of flexibility in the system to make the thing work. As it happens in the company, we do a 10-year plan, then we do a midterm plan 3 to 5, and then we do a budget every year. Why we do a budget? Because half of the things that we wrote into the 10 years plan, they actually didn't work. That's the reality of the things.
Now I'm going to get a few more questions. I think everybody by now understood why you can write books. It's a great story. There is one question over there, and then I'll come to the first row here. Go ahead, Jordan.
Hi, Luca. Jordan from Politico.
Hi.
We saw Stellantis announce a joint venture today with CATL. EV Motors has one with Chery. Stellantis has one with Leap Motor. What role do you think joint ventures with the Chinese are going to be playing going forward? And should automakers be exploring that more, to your point, to catch up on software, on EV technologies?
But look, I think I've always said, so I'm not sure I'm here speaking on behalf of everybody. So I have to be careful to keep, a certain, let's say, centered thing. But my opinion is that on the EV value chain, actually even more than the software one, okay, and semiconductor, for other reasons which I can explain, I think the Chinese ecosystem has taken one generation advantage for the simple reason that they started earlier, right? Maybe they started like 2010, 12, and we actually started after 2015, 16. This is the story, okay? And they did it in a way that all the ecosystem in China was supporting the idea that the automotive industry would be one of the 4 or 5 key strategic industry to support the economical conquest on China around the world. And we were living here in Europe with the system thinking that we were the bad boys, and actually, the automotive industry actually it's not so important because we had to do other things, okay, in Europe. So they got the whole system behind, right? From a political point of view, they align all the things, everything. And I can tell you in China they can be very coordinated, by the way. Yeah. So we are into a catch-up phase. So practically speaking, I think that these guys, they can bring potentially a lot of things to Europe. Okay? Many of the gigafactories that are built in Europe, even if they don't have the Chinese brand on it, they're actually built by either Korean or Chinese. This is the reality of the thing, right? And to me, this thing could be, in a way, part of a deal with the Chinese ecosystem. It could be also with the Americans if they want to come here or whoever, where you say, okay, do you want to access the European market? In exchange, you need to help us accelerating and making the conversion of the whole supply chain because you have the money, you have the technology, you have the competence to do that. It's a deal. There's nothing strange about it, right? They actually did the same with us. So 25 years ago, if we wanted to take advantage, as some companies have done, of the Chinese market, we had to do joint ventures, we had to localize our supply, we had to teach how to manufacture a car, how to develop a bumper, and then an interior, and then an engine, etc., right? So it's a normal kind of deal where everybody finds his benefit, but we still, in a way, control a little bit the game, right? So, yeah, and we make the European consumer benefit a potential acceleration of some technology because they are competitive in cost, they know the things. That's what my very practical thing. So when I look at these things like the recent and now, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, a company like CATL, okay, which I know very well, is a very strong company. They have like 350 gigawatt capacity already installed. Okay, I saw it, right? 350 gigawatt, it's actually the double of the plans for Europe in 2030. I don't know if, yeah, for the plans, not for the reality, okay? So all the CAM, pre-CAM thing, no single project in Europe on CAM, pre-CAM. So we have nothing. So the Nutella you put on the metal to do the battery, there's nobody that produces that here. I mean, we have to face what the reality is, okay? And we are in a catch-up, and so we can be a little pragmatic and find. So that's my message on the. I'm not sure that everybody's completely aligned, but more or less, I think this is the vision that.
No, it's exactly about finding that sweet spot, right?
Yeah.
Of
we are in trade, we are in
and,
business. We are not politicians, so we don't see black and white or red or green, right? We actually look at the things, and if this is the wish of the authority of the society to go for this, we need to find allies, could be on one side or on the other, to accelerate the thing.
Okay, Andy, and then we'll move
a lot
Mike
of
here.
questions.
Andy Bounds from the Financial Times. Where are European car markets going to come from? You said that Europe is stagnant. Even if you get rid of this regulation, you're facing tariffs in China potentially in retaliation. You're facing tariffs in the US. You're facing a UK which is not following the EU in tariffs on Chinese cars. So your EVs are going to be more expensive in the UK.
Yeah.
So where do you go?
I mean, if you look at you know, the market cap of European auto company, you know, you have the answer, right? So there is a kind of a general sentiment that the European industry is in a very delicate phase. Okay, so even the analysts, they look at that. So you have the answer. But on the other hand, I think that nobody should underestimate the ability of great companies, because we still have some of the greatest automotive company in Europe, in the world. Think about, I'm not talking about Renault, but think about Stellantis or you know, or Mercedes or BMW, etc. We're still talking about some legendary organization, etc. That, by the way, are there since what? 100, 120, 130. So they went through 2 world wars, financial crisis, energy crisis, etc., etc. And you make a list. You know, you compare sectors, okay, and you look at the percentage of companies that have survived the century. And the automotive industry is one of those sectors where companies are more resilient. So we have ability to reinvent ourselves. So don't underestimate the thing. And I believe that let's say, the old trend into, you know, deglobalization, etc., will force us to actually restructure our company, restructure our supply chain, adapt our strategy, etc., etc. It's a challenging time, that's for sure, and a very delicate. That's why at least we need to win our battle in our you know, when we are at home. So the European market needs to rebound, to give us the resources to reorganize and refocus and going into a kind of a reconquest thing that will look like different from what it used to be before. You have a lot of you have Gulf countries market is very dynamic. Latin America is dynamic. India could be an opportunity. ASEAN is an opportunity, but it's going to be a very fierce battle. And at the same time, you try to defend your position, like in China, where the share of foreign OEM is going down. And maybe if some of, I mean, that's not our case like Renault, because we're not present there, but potentially the American market, the US market will continue to be very dynamic, so we need to compete there, etc. But for us, this kind of thing is normal. I mean, the auto industry is probably one of the most competitive, you know, sector of all. Okay, so there's nothing new, but every year the thing is becoming more complicated and more complex with many more players in a world that is kind of, you know, falling apart. It's not flat anymore. So we need to get used to some kind of a bumpy, you know, landscapes.
I'm going to get the mic over here.
Thank you so much, Marietta, for Ligue 1 Continent. You said something that was very interesting before. You said Europeans are not
only one thing.
Well, many things, but we'll go on stages. You said something that again feeds very much into this debate of whether there's a European decline in general. The Europeans don't buy cars because basically they cannot afford to buy a car. That's what you're implying. That's a very serious thing to say, because ultimately what it says is not consumers changing habits, but it's simply we cannot afford a car in a rich continent. That seems a very heavy concept. Then you also suggested the Commission is working on this industrial plan, and they had not really consulted with you. I wonder why you think there's this form of barriers, why you believe at this point, with really 60 days to go, they're not on the phone with you. It sounds rather strange. And then lastly, what do you make now that you've been in Brussels of the political zeitgeist in the city? Because you now hear, you know, the Green Deal, people don't talk about it that much. Now it's about the clean industry. Some countries, the Italian Prime Minister was very outspoken saying there has been a lot of ideology built into this. So what is law, but in the next few years, where do you hope you will be able to make a meaningful change now that the politicians seem to have changed tune? So it was a lot of points.
Yeah, it's complicated. You have 3 questions. One is, I think that the issue is a company like ours and in general the automotive industry actually prosper on the prosperity of the middle class. I mean, apart from people can buy cars that are, but you know, if you look at the cycle, and I mean, it's no secret that the middle class, European middle class, is losing purchasing power. Okay? So this is a kind of societal problem that I cannot solve. The only thing I can do is try to bring cars that are more and more competitive, okay, in terms of cost and price, etc., etc. But we actually made a kind of a calculation, looking at the impact of the regulation that we have in front of us until 2030. What will be the impact on the cost of the car? From now to 2030, all the regulations are bringing 40% more cost in the car, 40. So that's why we have, that kind of clash. You understand? That's why because we really care about doing products that people can buy. Yeah, that's the only thing we can do, right? And by the way, we're also, part of the story, because everybody looks at the price of the car, but nobody looks at the cost of actually running a car, which has increased dramatically. The parkings, the insurances, the fines, the the energy, etc. So it's actually increased over proportionally compared to the cost, to the cost of the product. So there is an issue there, and we need to, and I'm not asking government to pour money in subsidies to I don't think this is only something that can be temporary for some segments because we want to boost certain mix of technology. So we have to go back to competitiveness, okay, and to do things but at the same time the purchasing power of the middle class needs to grow again in Europe. Otherwise, the market will be small for our sector. Maybe not for others, but for our sectors, it's actually more urgent. You asked the question about what we're going to do with this. If it's not that the people didn't listen to us. I'm talking about a very practical thing. We have maybe 60 days, 90 days to go for the publication. We will see people. I'm not going to mention names because to be elegant, etc. And we'll tell them, look, we are there. We know what we're talking about. We're putting a lot of money, so we want to see our money somehow coming back. Listen to us because we have very concrete proposal. If you look at the way regulation or strategies are done in China or are done in the US, I can tell you that the economic actor is always involved. In China, typically you have the NDRC does the regulation. You have science, so to make sure that the thing is scientific. If you believe in science, I believe in science. And then you have the economic actor, and they try to find something that can tick all the boxes for everybody. Okay, so we want to have that kind of conversation. We are prepared. We know what we're talking about, and we want to contribute. We don't want to refuse progress. Very, very clearly. And I don't know what is the debate because I don't live in Brussels. I don't have, but I think that what we have to avoid is to actually go back to square one. In this kind of debate between, extreme position on that and refusing completely that kind of movement of the transition, I think we need to find a kind of a balanced position. You see what I mean? So, and again, I think that involving us in the conversation is going to bring that level of, I don't know what to say, but pragmatism, and that level of pragmatism that any good industrial policy needs, because you can put a lot of numbers and concepts on the paper, but the thing is, in companies says is 5% is strategy and 95% is execution. So we can really help. Yeah,
and that's why it's promising that there will be simplification of regulation.
Yeah, for example, right?
And
it's not true that they don't listen. It's that right now, we spoke. For example, we have been when the Draghi report was made. We had a lot of contacts. We had a lot of the industry had a lot of contacts. I think they went through all the industry to build the thing. That kind of approach, I think, is very good. That's why the report is good. The report is very, very good. And for me, it's a kind of a great blueprint for what we should be doing. So actually, we are there, even with ACEA, to help to turn that report into reality. right? So, and I hope that all, as they say, the all industrial strategy for our sector will be, closer to the diagnosis and the conclusion of that report, because it will make a lot of sense for us. And
I have a very patient gentleman here, third on the yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Stefano Porcello for MLEX. Thanks for the briefing. I'd like to ask you two questions, one on 2035, one on 2025. So on the first one, can you give us some clear words on biofuels and e-fuels future? Do we need to change the rules, or this is not needed?
I don't think it's the time to discuss this. I think we have let's say, my point is, my urgency is 2025, okay? 2035, we have 10 years, probably after, if we are able to find a solution for 2025, which is very urgent, okay, very urgent, then, our call will be to very quickly sit with the authority to discuss how to get to 2035, right? So let's chop the elephant in pieces. The most urgent thing is 2025, because you have to understand one thing, practically speaking, is that if there is let's say, a kind of let's say, there is no position move from the Commission that clearly states that we won't incur in fines, company like ours will have to make a provision for that thing. It means that you take, let's assume that the industry will pay more than 50 billion as our estimation if the thing doesn't move. We'll have to put 15 billion into the fridge, okay, as a provision for a likely, let's say, fine. And these are the resources that are distracted from investment into the thing. And this is now. We are doing the budget and approving the budget with the auditors, etc. Now, not in 3 months, not in 4 months. So that's our priority. And I leave it to my successor to engage with you on how ACEA will take a position on 2035. Yeah.
Regarding this, is not the debate itself diverting the attention of customers and industry on the 2035 targets?
So say it again, because I don't.
The debate about the 2035 target, isn't it per se diverting the attention on charging station, investments, future?
Yeah, we're saying the same thing. Because at the end of the day, I mean, you have people that believe fortune teller, okay, that can anticipate, when you're going to die and when, but it's like 10 years from now, okay? But in fact, the future, you build it every day, okay? So the real discussion is what we can do to get as quick as possible without creating collateral damages to, the ambition that we all have together, which is to decarbonize transport, okay? I mean, remember that the whole story of regulation is just to tell you how somehow kind of distant from the reality is. We sell, I don't know, 13 million cars, 15 million cars in Europe every year. Okay, so in 10 years, there will be 150 million cars sold from now to 2035. But we have what? 250 million on the street, right?
Yep.
So when you talk about decarbonizing transport, you also need to address the stock of the cars that are. How do you do that? You take a car and you put a battery and you convert the thing. It's just like, right? So let's have a real discussion on the thing, because actually we want, we actually want to contribute to the decarbonation. So the real discussion is a strategy with all these elements where we have the means of our ambition, because there's also sometimes, the problem. You give a target and then you don't have the money for subsidies or for that because you have a budget problem. I mean, many things are like not aligned. And that's what we have to do. We have to build a plan together with the authorities.
Okay, let's go here, please.
Thank you. Lorenzo Consul from ASCA News, Italy. I have two questions. One, you said very clearly something about the small cars.
Yeah.
My question is, why didn't the EU industry, car industry, bet on small cars? Why there were no small cars? There are no small cars for people that want to buy them.
Yeah.
And there are only Chinese small cars, not European small cars. Why? Is that a problem? Is that a mistake that the industry has made? And the second thing, you were talking of the stock. The question is, do you think there is a future, any future for combustion engines with zero emissions, like hydrogen cars, combustion hydrogen cars? Why there's absolutely nothing about that? I mean, it is possible today to convert a gas car into an hydrogen car. It's very simple. Why there's nothing about this? And the last thing, can you please be clear on the fact that 235 remains an objective that has not to be changed, because there is a very strong effort by the EPP, by the right-wing parties, to change that, to eliminate the 235 objective. As you know, with the position you have, can you say that you don't want that, or you think it's possible?
Why do you want me to, why do you want to put me into the thing, that kind of ideological debate? Okay, because this has become an ideological
because
debate.
They say they do it for you.
No, who?
These people, they say they do it for the car industry.
I talk about real life. The speed of development of EV or the EV market, okay? Which is, EV is the only technology that works together with hydrogen and discounted for zero, which is not the reality of the thing. Because if you measure the life cycle of EVs, probably what, 50, 60 grams, something like this, with the energy mix that we have in Europe, right? But that's the convention. So it's forcing only EVs because it's the biggest contributor when you want to lower down the average. Okay, this is the way the regulation has been constructed. Okay, so I'm not gonna get into this thing because I don't think, as a president of ACEA at this stage, let's say we can express, a clear position, and we don't want to get into, the debate between one party and the other, et cetera, et cetera. What we look at the thing is the development of the EV is going 50%. I mean, let's say it's actually half of the speed it should be. So if you put the thing, we're not going to get that to 2035 with the 100%. We're going to get that 50 if it continues like that. And this is the problem for people like us. How do we close the thing between 50 and 100? Are we going to get close 20? At which cost? 80, 90, etc. So we are practical people. We don't do politics. Right?
And I think words matter. If you look at what the EPP says, they're not talking about reversal, they're talking about correction, because there needs to be a reality check, in other words. So it's often understood in a different way.
This thing, okay, was designed without an analysis on impact. I'm not saying this, is Professor Mario Draghi that states that in his report. In 2017-18, okay, like 15, 18 years in advance of the thing. Who can forecast in 18 years who is going to win the Italian football championship? There is a chance that Juve would be one because it's a good team, but you understand what I mean? So I think that you have to build, that kind of thing. The most important thing is to build the bricks of the house to get there, okay? Now, the story of hydrogen and the story of small cars. You wanted me to be clear. I think that you don't know very much the implication. To say that it's easy to convert a gas car into a hydrogen car, I would like to invite you at Renault, because we do hydrogen product, and to show you what it means to put a tank that can stand 700 bar pressure for hydrogen. Assuming that you will have the infrastructure, and assuming that you will have enough renewable energy or renewable energy to do green hydrogen, which is different from gray, which is different from blue or pink. okay? So the reality is much more complicated from a technical point of view. And on the regulation on small cars, the reason why we're not doing small cars, I mean, I've done some of the most successful, personally, some of the most successful small cars in Europe in the last 20 years. Toyota Yaris, Fiat 500, Twingos, Clios, that's my specialty, okay? And I can tell you that to see that we are not able to do a profitable small car that people can afford, it's, for a guy like me, it's actually a drama, because that's what I've done my whole career. And it's technically impossible in Europe, with the regulation that we have, okay, to make a profitable small cars. That's why the OEMs don't do it. The whole regulation in the last 20 years has pushed the mix up. One of the biggest fundamental bugs in the European regulation is that it forced the OEMs to push up the mix to be able to make money. And the EV story is not going to help, because you need space between the wheels to put the battery. Okay? So you were talking about small Chinese car. I'm not sure you know what you're talking about. There are no small Chinese cars. There are some derivatives of small thing. Maybe you have a Leapmotor, T03, etc. But the Chinese, they do big cars. Go to China, and you will see that between front wheel and rear wheels, you have normally 3 meters, and in Europe it's below 270. Okay, so they do big cars with big batteries, sometimes energy inefficient. Okay, so this is the reality of the thing. Just to give you some facts so that you learn about the thing. If I put GSR2 functionality, as we had to do this spring, you put 400, 500 euro as an entry ticket for all the cars. If you put 400, 500 euro, which is 1,000 euro in price, okay, on a car that costs 20,000 euro, is a lot. If you put it on a big, 5-meter 20 limousine that costs 120,000 euro, the customer is rich, and you don't see the difference. Those kind of things, we had, and we will have many of them. Every time they do a regulation, every time you add cost to small cars, it's over-proportionally impacting the competitiveness of small cars. This is the problem. So we probably need a regulation for small cars that is different from the one of big cars. That's one of the proposals that we're making, okay? Because otherwise, we will not be able, because I have to make, I have a lot of customers. I have, of course, the media, I have the investors, I have the trade unions, I have the employees that I have to pay, I have my customers, that's the most important thing. So I have to make everybody happy. It's a complicated job. It's a very complicated job.
We take one more question.
Yeah.
And then time is up. Yeah, go ahead. Waiting for directions here. Yeah, okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Tommaso Gallavotti in Kronos, Italy. It's just a question on EVs, because one of the main shortcomings is the limited range of EVs currently. Yeah. And how long do you think that it will take to get to an acceptable range of autonomy? I mean, nowadays it's 400 kilometers nominally, but practically it's much less. It's about 300 kilometers. How long do you think that it will take for the European industry to catch up and to get to 600 kilometers or 700?
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, the answer is depends. It depends on the usage, okay? It depends on the density of infrastructure. It depends on the charging speed of the thing. I believe that, it's a kind of a psychological thing, right? But in fact, you can, let's say, already now, with 600 nominal kilometers, okay? Nominal, because then you have the reality and the temperature and the usage and how fast you go, if it's highway, etc., etc. You can actually, if you get a little bit organized, you can actually use, that's all the inquiries that are, have a normal usage of the product, okay? But you don't want to put 600 kilometers of range in a small car. So for example, when I'm talking about, I'm doing the Twingo, okay, the next generation Twingo. It's designed to be a urban car. I want to do the car below 20,000 euro because that's a kind of a threshold so that the people, and I'm going to do it, okay? But of course, I'm not going to put like a 70 kilowatt battery or, into the thing because it doesn't make sense. And remember that every kilowatt is money and cost, okay? So the answer is depends. And it depends on a lot of things. I mean, you could look at the mobile phone industry. At the certain point in time, nobody did, let's say, a mobile phone with the battery that would last a week, right? You know that you can charge, so you charge the office, you charging during the night, maybe you charge during the night, and if you're not an AV user like me, it's going to last the thing. So we will find a sweet spot. Technology is coming. We think we can get below 15 minutes charging for a big battery. I've seen even better. Okay, so the process is going to be, and the people we're going to get used to it. But the story of energy transition, it looks like a responsibility only on OEMs. The only one that pay the fine, they have to put the money. And the customer says, no, I know, until I don't get there, I don't want to change my habit, etc. Everybody needs to participate to that. How many of you drive here an electric car? Raise your hand. Just once. No, just one. Do you own an electric car? Do you put the money on the thing? So that, you see the thing? So this is a collective effort. You cannot point at us only. You guys have to participate as media, as consumer, to the thing. You want to do that? Then we go, I mean, sorry?
You're not delivering the gas we need. Me, myself, for example, a year ago, I bought a monovolume, like a sort of like a 200, There's nothing like that in electric in the market in a price that I can pay. It's like European.
You need a monovolume. Okay, now you decide monovolume. A monovolume is a wall that goes against it. So this thing, typically, monovolume, you will not have. No, you will not have. You want to go electric, you will not have, because the thing is a box that goes against the air, so it's bad in aerodynamics. No, you will not have. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have a long thing, low, with very good aerodynamic performance.
But I think that illustrates perfectly the challenge. No,
it shows the challenge.
Yeah, of the mobility transition. Yeah. It's not as simple as that. Okay, I'd like to thank Luca De Meo very much, and all of you also for your interest and attention.
For my last dance in ACEA.
Last tango in Paris. Yeah, thank you.